morning, everyone. My name is Natasha Borchanin. I am the program manager for Southeast PA Apex Accelerator, formerly known as PTAC, and I want to welcome you to today's presentation. This event is co-sponsored by our fellow Northwest Commission Apex Accelerator and Northeast PA Alliance Apex Accelerator. And as a refresher, our mission is to assist businesses in learning how to successfully sell to government agencies, whether on federal, state, and local level, through seminars like this one or one-on-one counseling. We are funded. We are funded by DoD, Office of Small Business Program, and all of our services are free of charge. There are many Apex accelerators located nationwide, and our co-sponsoring accelerators serve the following counties. NEPA Alliance serves Carbon, Lackawanna, Luzerne, Monroe, Pike, Schuylkill, and Wayne counties. Northwest Commission serves Clarion, Crawford, Erie, Forest, Lawrence, Mercer, Variango, and Warren. And if you're not one of these counties, we will put a helpful link in a chat for you to find your appropriate Apex accelerator. And lastly, our Southeast PA offices serve Berks, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Lehigh, Montgomery, Northampton, and Philadelphia counties. Today, we will be discussing doing business with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and our guide through today's session is James Wood, who serves as a deputy for small business program for the Army Corps of Engineers in the Philadelphia district. He oversees district small business program, and it is the principal advisor to the commander and his staff on all matters related to the acquisition process, specifically focusing on small businesses. Mr. Wood has over 12 years of federal contracting experience as a contract specialist, procurement analyst, and contracting officer. He has spent most of his civilian career as a military Sealift Command, MSC, Norfolk, Virginia, as a contracting officer supporting operations and maintenance of the large, medium speed roll-off, known as LMSR, government-owned, contractor-operated fleet. He started his federal career over 22 years ago with the PA and then VA Army National Guard, primarily and most recently as a major in the Finance Corps supporting Virginia National Guard Joint Force Headquarters as the deputy of the Resource Management Oversight Division out of Defense Supply Center in Richmond. Mr. Wood is a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh with a bachelor's degree in business administration. He grew up a Floridian, but now enjoys his Florida home in rural Philadelphia. Thank you very much for joining us, James. And I just want to let everybody know this is a recorded session, and please reserve your questions for the end and feel free to raise your hand at the end so we can interact directly as Mr. Wood is answering your questions. So I will stop sharing and allow Mr. James Wood to take on the presentation from here now. Thank you for joining us once again.
Yes, thank you. And thank you all for joining. Yeah, large speed roll on, roll off vessels does not roll off the tongue. LMSRs, those vessels are very large. And
thank you.
Yeah, it's not easy to say, and it takes a long time. That's why we just end up most of the time saying LMSR when I was working for the Navy. And I should be sharing now. Is my screen coming through?
It is. You are still in slide, but you are there.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Now you're in full screen.
Now
yep.
Perfect. Hide that. So again, yeah, my name is James Wood. I work for Army Corps of Engineers, Philadelphia. I've been here for going on 2 years. I really enjoy working with the Army Corps. It brings my 3 areas of my 3 areas of passion, or 3 areas that I really liked. The Army being in the Army, being able to help small businesses or help contractors, and also I'm a newly Philadelphia resident. I've been in the area for 3 or 4 years, but really being able to help the community to with projects and with work that are going to help with resilience and other things, and I'll get more into that. But it really brings in those three areas that I like to do. And one of the big areas, the main reasons I got into contracting was being able to help contractors, and that's why I really like being able to do this. First, I want to start, and I asked a little bit about who's going to be on this meeting, so I'm going to start pretty basic. I'm going to go over some basic details of the Army Corps of Engineers. I don't mean that if somebody's already knows this or already has seen this before, please forgive me. But I understand also there's some new to government contractors that I want to make sure they understand what the Army Corps of Engineers, what we do, and how we go about it. So really, our mission is we're the engineering firm for the DoD. We deliver engineering solutions, collaborations, partnerships with on many different areas, and I'll go into our 4 business lines here in Philadelphia in the next slide. But the way we do that is we focus on people, readiness, partnership, and innovation. The Army Corps of Engineers does not advocate or promote any specific project or say try to get funding for a specific project. We partner with local, state, and other representatives on projects that they want to do to get the funding and then to get the land that's needed or whatever's needed. So we don't advocate to Congress or anything for specific projects. We have to partner with other organizations, other state or federal agencies to get the funding and to advocate for that. So here's the 4 business lines that we have here in Philadelphia. We have military construction, which is what it may sound like. It could be anywhere from an Army, new gates on an Army base, HVACs on a facility, a hangar, a school. We primarily support 3 bases: Dover Air Force Base, Joint Base Dix McGuire Lakehurst, and Tobyhanna. All these bases also have their own contracting teams and have a lot of times have their own engineering group. So it really comes down to for these projects whether or not we have some specialty that the base needs, or if the base doesn't have capacity to do the work they want to do, they might kick it over the fence to us. Then we can either accept it or also say we don't have the capacity, which is not normally the case. So those are the 3 military construction bases that we support. Our biggest mission here in Philadelphia by far is the Civil Works mission, and on that one, it's the navigational waterways. So that's our historical mission that the Army Corps has always had, is ensuring navigable waterways here in the United States. And what does that mean? When I get to the map in a couple slides, you'll see that Army Corps of Engineers Philadelphia and most Army Corps districts are based on watersheds. So we support the Delaware watershed, which is the New Jersey and Delaware coastline, up the Delaware River, and to a little bit of New York and the eastern part of the state. And the reason we're based on watersheds is, again, the historical mission is navigable waterways, making sure that commerce and our military can get in and out of the ports that needs to do. A secondary part of that and a third part of that is that next to flood risk management and coastal storm risk management. So those are really tied directly with our navigable waterways mission. But that's dredging, that's the beach renourishment, that's anything that that's the dams that we support here in Philadelphia. It's anything that would be used to mitigate the risk of a storm surge, or to, in case a storm, Superstorm Sandy or other storm were to hit our beaches or hit our waterways, it doesn't overload the system. One of the areas that I didn't know the Army Corps was in, but actually I really have gotten into and I like to learn more about, is the ecological system restoration. So we do a lot of dam removals, river restorations, basically trying to restore the environment to as close to natural as possible, and then engineering with nature. Make sure, again, as we're doing that, we're either slowing water down or restoring the riverway by removing a dam, and not affecting the flood risk management, or improving the flood risk management while improving the natural environment, or getting as close to as we can to possible. Dam and bridge operations, you'll see a couple. I have a couple bridges. We have bridges across the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal. We have 4 dams that we support. Those are all flood risk management dams. So those are big. Those are big infrastructure things that we support directly here in Army Corps Philadelphia. Interagency. This one's more of a mixed bag, and it's not as steady. But all those agencies, depending on their need, their own capacities, might come to us and say, "Hey, this is something that we are not able to do, or we know that you have expertise in this area," and they'll ask us if we're able to engineer them or contract for it. I'll have a slide a little bit later. It'll go into some FEMA, some of the things that FEMA asks us to do. And I mean, even like the Navy, sometimes they'll ask us to build a pier or something. So it really depends on what they need. I know at one point we were building a runway for FAA. So it really depends on what engineering they need, and then they'll kick it over to us, and we'll have a discussion whether or not we're the partner or the correct builder or for them, engineer for them. The third area is we're very proud to have the Marine Design Center here co-located with the Army Corps of Engineers Philadelphia. They are the boat builders for all the floating plant for the Army Corps of Engineers. So anybody needs a survey vessel, a barge, Florida, Seattle, Alaska, whatever Army district it might be, Army Corps district it might be, they go through the Marine Design Center for the design of that vessel, and then they go through our contracting here in Philadelphia for the contracting of that vessel. Along that same lines, and I'll actually hit it on this later, one of our biggest wins last year was we contracted out for the building of the new McFarland. So the current McFarland is one of 4 East Coast hopper dredges that allows the Army and DoD to maintain those navigable waterways in case of emergency or in case of natural disaster or war, and the civilian fleet is not able to be exactly where we want it to be. We maintain a fleet of hopper dredges that are able to do the work that we need to do. The vessel is very old, and it's been in the process of being replaced for 5-6 years. We awarded that contract last year, so that was a very big win for the Army Corps of Philadelphia. 3 or things I wanted to bring up and sort of pat our own back and say how great we are doing here in the Army Corps of Philadelphia is we, at the last SIME Small Business Conference a week and a half ago, we were issued 3 different awards for recognizing how much the hard work that the contracting and the program folks do towards small business. And the first one is the McFarland I just mentioned. We had almost a $300 million award to a small business for the replacement of the McFarland. And then we had the largest increase in small business dollars from the previous year. So not just the McFarland, but above and beyond that. So we almost doubled our small business spend from last year. And I'll get into some actual specific numbers a little bit. And then also we had 50% or more of our contracts went to small business. We actually did 71% of our overall contracts went to small business. So again, the Army Corps of Philadelphia has a very wide mission, but we also very much support small business in our mission. So I want to show you or give you an idea, a visual of where the Army Corps of Philadelphia is. And then I'm going to go up the chain all the way from the division to Army Corps at large, just so you have a good idea or a better idea where we work out of. And then I'll work my way back to the Army Corps of Philadelphia. So as you can see, the Delaware River up right through the center right there. Philadelphia is the pink area, Trenton, and then a little bit of New York. Again, we have the eastern part of Pennsylvania. I'll show you on the next map who has most of Pennsylvania. But we have the Delaware coastline, New Jersey coastline. All those red dashes are beach renourishment, beach projects we have to try to protect the coastline, protect the properties, and protect the Back Bay. Some of the numbers there, I mean, we have 9 million people or 9 million Americans that live here in the district. We are the smallest district by landmass of the North Atlantic Division, which you'll see on the next map. But we have talking about the bridges and dams, we have 5 dams, 5 bridges, and 4 canals. So we support, even though we're small by geographic region, we're very active, and we have a lot of navigable waterways and coastline and marshes that we support. Here's the North Atlantic Division. So each district is grouped in either 4 to 6 districts together to make a division. So we go from all the way from Norfolk down to New England, and we also include the overseas headquarters, the Transatlantic Division, which is not on this map, but it's the overseas European area. By landmass, Baltimore district owns most of Pennsylvania, the central part of Pennsylvania. Then we also have a Pittsburgh district, which owns the western half of the state. So depending on where you're at in Pennsylvania, you might be working, or you should be working with one, or if not all 3 of the different districts, 2 of them being in the North Atlantic Division. We do a lot of crossover, a lot of work with contractors in New York, and also down to Norfolk. So I don't get as many contractors coming from New England, but I'm always willing to help that or have good contractors join the fold. Here is a larger map of the United States, just to give you an idea. The pink top right is the North Atlantic Division, as I mentioned. Depending as you grow, as your company gets bigger, you might start helping the South Atlantic Division in the southeast, Florida, Mississippi. Great Lakes District would be the Pittsburgh and all the Great Lakes area. And just as you can see, there is a lot of different districts, a lot of different centers. As you grow your business, you're going to want to make relationships with all the different small business like myself in those different districts, because we all have our own contracting teams. We all have our own programs and requirements. So what I may not have a need for your service at this particular moment, but one of the other small business professionals, one of the other districts may have exactly what you're offering. Here is the process for getting started with the Army Corps of Philadelphia or any DoD entity. You have to be registered in the SAM.gov. That's the very first thing I check. It's just make sure you have your UEID, which is your unique identifier, your cage code, your NAICS are selected. So I know, and any other small business professional or contracting person knows whether or not you're able to do business with us and what's your area. I'd also recommend, which I'll have another slide on it, this disaster response registry. If you don't know what that is, or if you need more information, I would recommend looking into that and possibly selecting that. I have, again, a slide coming up from FEMA that I learned a lot more at the Small Business Conference last week. And there's a whole list of contractors that are registered to respond in case of emergency to FEMA or the Army Corps of Engineers. And you have to be on that registry in order to be on that, to be considered. So that's another thing that I would consider as a secondary step beyond SAM registration is the disaster response registry, if you're in that area, if you're in that kind of industry. And then once you're registered, you go on SAM.gov, you search for opportunities, all the DoD opportunities, specifically all the Army Corps of Engineer opportunities that are being publicized are on SAM.gov. So that's really where you're going to want to find whatever business you're doing, get familiar with it. There are some private websites or some other websites you can use to help you narrow that down. But it really, it's all the information is there on SAM.gov, and you should not need another entity to help you organize that. One thing I do is from this point, you and I or whoever wants to have an introductory meeting, we'd have a conversation. And after that, I would include you on my Excel and my distro on future opportunities that meet your NAICS codes or within your wheelhouse. When you're going through SAM, you want to make sure, again, you're looking at all those different districts and centers. We all have our own small business person, our own contracting person, and therefore we all post our own opportunities. So it really is important to get an idea what the different districts are looking for, and I'll give you some of that information on how to search that a little bit later. Here's an idea of the NAICS codes that are common to Army Corps in general. We do a little bit of everything. as you can see in the picture, it's a beach replenishment there, beach nourishment, but engineering service, janitorial service, computers, um, surveys, construction, shipbuilding is one you'll see on mine. Um, but then when you get down to the small, it's remediation services, facility support, engineering. When it comes to what the Army Corps does, we provide a lot of different services. It really depends on what the civilian or military project requires us to do. So we, it's very hard to say everything that we do because it is so varied. But I would say if it's not something that my Army Corps district does, I can try to help you, or I can connect you with another Army Corps district or somebody else that might be in that area. And I am constantly learning new things that we do. A coworker and I were having this conversation about how do we do emergency support in the Army Corps of Engineers, Philadelphia, and they're an environmental scientist, and I'm doing the small business, and I was reaching out to contracting, and I was having a little problem understanding how Army Corps Philadelphia specifically handled emergency response, debris removal and stuff. And then lo and behold, I was at the small business conference last week or week and a half ago, and there's a whole presentation on emergency support function number 3, public works and engineering, and it has 3 different areas that they support: debris removal, blue roof, which is temporary roofing, electrical, temporary housing, critical public facilities, and infrastructure assessment. So there's a link to the website for more information on uh, ESF number 3. But really, if you're in this kind of area, first you want to make sure you're registered in that emergency uh, management that I mentioned earlier. But then get into, and each one of these is spearheaded by a different district. A couple of them are the Mid Atlantic or the Great Lakes districts. But we can definitely have that conversation on where and how you might want to get into these different avenues. But these are how the Army Corps engineer, or the 3 areas the Army Corps of Engineers supports during emergency management response. And there are already pre-established contracts, but there are on ramps and off ramps and ways to get onto them. And you need to be on it before an event strikes, or it would be too late. But there's always the next thing or whatever might be coming. So I'm not saying it's too late in total, just too late for that Hurricane Sandy or whatever response. So this is still pretty big picture, but the Army Corps of Engineers did over $10 billion with small businesses last year. That's the highest amount we've had in 10 years, and it was the highest amount we did in 10 years last year as well. It was 8.9 million, I want to say. So the Army Corps mission is with the infrastructure bill, with everything going on, the Army Corps mission is continuing to expand, and things that have not been funded in the past or underfunded have been funded, and small business is making it happen. We're leaning on small business, and small business is definitely coming through with the ability to do the work that we need them to do, because the Army Corps engineers cannot do our job without contractors and cannot do our job without small business. And that's sort of what the next 2 slides, the circles, are telling. 8 out of 10 of every contract that we awarded last year went to small businesses. So 80% of the overall contracts went to small businesses, and then 44% of contracts that were full and open, so not even set aside, not even hub zone, full and open, had large businesses, were still won by small business. And I bring that up because I think it's important to, and sometimes small businesses get discouraged when it's not set aside, or it's not it's full and open competition. I can't compete with the bigger companies, and that's not true. We're not seeing that to be the case, because smaller businesses are more agile. They're able to go after more specific work. They're able to go after work in areas that may not be profitable for a larger business. So it really is not the case that if it's a full and open competition, small businesses are excluded from playing. It's they very much play in that realm. The Army Corps of Philadelphia had the highest hub zone spend and the second highest severely disadvantaged business spend in the entire federal government. We're very proud of that. Hub zone is one of the hardest ones to get. It's just the way it's structured. But we have done historically very well in those two areas. And winning, I've heard my several different leadership along the chain, generals and different. It's really getting small businesses to perform the work on time within budget, either as a prime or a sub, because that allows us to continue meet the requirements for the nation and move on to the next project, so we keep on improving. Here's some things that are sort of going on in the overall Army Corps or DoD realm. I've already sort of mentioned the infrastructure jobs, disaster relief supplement. There's been a lot of increased civil works missions. And again, small businesses have really met the challenge and met that head on, and definitely continue to do so. Many people know the SDB goal increased or is in the process of increasing from 5 to 15%. That goal is a very interesting goal because there's no way to directly go after that goal. We have to go about it either through small business set-asides, 8As, other socioeconomic category set-asides. We cannot make a set-aside for an SDB goal. So we have to just increase our overall small business spend and focus on trying to get to that severe disadvantaged businesses. Our agency goal for that same SDB has went from 19 to 26. So we continue to be better than the overall DoD. And I don't see that changing as a whole. We're doing very well on that goal. As again, we're the second highest in the DoD. A small thing, if you're an 8A, the bona fide office moratorium is still in place, and I'm not sure exactly when and if that will be taken away. And I'll mention it later, but my forecast, or the Army Corps of Philadelphia forecast, has been posted, and most districts should have had that posted a week or so ago. So if you are working with any district and want to know what they're doing this coming year, FY24, then you should be able to find that on their website. Here's some sort of policy or other updates that I find are good to know, or good to be aware of. There were a bunch of NAICS standards increased, size standards that went up. None of them went down. So that means you may not have been a small business in a certain area, engineering services. There's just the three right there that were notable for us. You may not have been a small business anymore because you might have aged out or had too much growth. You might want to reevaluate those, because now you might be a small business again, and you can change your SAM.gov registration. One I really like to put at is for subcontractors. I know a lot of contractors start off as makes sense as subcontractors. You can now get credit for the past performance of a joint venture or subcontractors. And you can also go to your, if you are a subcontractor, you can go to your primary contractor and get past performance evaluations completed. I think you have to ask them within 30 days or 45 days of the completion of the contract, but you're able to get a past performance evaluation for the piece that you completed. And that'll help you greatly when it comes to building your portfolio, building your book, and then being able to compete for prime work down the road. There's been new NAICS codes added to women-owned or economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses. The hub zone map freeze is over. The new map took effect in July, and there has been a new Mythbusters memo released. They're always trying to update those with new or updated information. So I'm going to take this now and bring it back down to Army Corps of Philadelphia. So here's the Army Corps of Philadelphia NAICS codes that we primarily used. On the top, you'll see all the ones in bolded are the same ones down in the small business areas. So we do a lot of work in shipbuilding. Almost all of shipbuilding, ship operations, is done with small business. There's a lot of remedial actions that are provided through small business. And a lot of our just general construction is also done, commercial, institutional building construction, and heavy is done through small business. Here is our numbers for last year. So overall, we did almost 50 million in small business awards. 71% again of all of our awards went to small business. Our goal was 35%, so we more than doubled our goal, and we increased again. If you look at the very bottom, you can see we increased $298 million more awarded to small businesses than last year, and then 20 more than the year before that. So we've increased dramatically over the last 2 years the amount of funding that has gone to small businesses. Small disadvantaged business, that spending was up as well by almost 40 million, and we made our goal there. We had a little trouble in this district with the women-owned and the service disabled veteran-owned small businesses. Still respectable numbers, 9 million and 4 million respectively, but our goal was 3% and 2%, and we fell short of those. One of the main reasons, caveat, is we had such a large $260 million award to the McFarland, which was just a small business, none of those socioeconomic categories. It really pushed down our women-owned and our hub zone. There are other percentages for socioeconomic categories, so we would have been probably double those percentages if we had not had that. But I'm very happy to say we did, because it was a big event, and they're doing very well from my understanding. Overall eligible small business awards increased again to almost 700 million. I'm about to go into my forecast. This is just a disclaimer saying this is the best information I have. You can always reach out to me and get more information or the most up-to-date information. But this is what is available on my website, publicly facing. So here's some construction opportunities for this FY. As I mentioned, dam removal. We do HVAC replacement. So if an Army base or a facility needs a whole new HVAC system, we might replace it. The 15G dredge material placement facility, that's just once we dredge the Delaware, there's a lot of slurry, there's a lot of material, water and sand and dirt and rocks. Then we place those in containment areas along the Delaware River. As they start to dry or de-water, we have to move the dirt around to build higher levees, to build higher dikes, and to fit more material. So that's a really big project coming up, earthwork project here in the district, that we are splitting that placement area up and then adding new higher levees. Environmental improvement, that's a stream restoration that I sort of mentioned before. Straightening it out, or adding vegetation, adding riprap, but ultimately trying to get that river base and banks to as close to the natural habitat as we can. Again, another stream restoration, same idea. Trying to build a habitat, trying to build it maintainable, and also to prevent flooding in different counties and different areas. We also do, we don't get as much, but there's a lead abatement in two of our dam facilities. Most of that has been taken care of at this point, but we do get asbestos, lead, mold, PFAS. There's a lot of different abatement and removal in that sort of environmental remediation area. And then I want to point out directly, if anybody is an 8A or looking at their 8A certification, we support the 99th Reserve Centers. They're from Norfolk all the way to New England out to Pittsburgh area. They do a lot of SRM, windows, doors, HVAC, roofs, sometimes new buildings, and they're almost exclusively 8A program. They are very familiar, and they really like using the 8A, so they're very familiar with cycling contractors out and everything. So whenever we have our introductory meeting, if you are an 8A or looking at your 8A, that's something we definitely want to be talking about. I'm not going to go too deep into this. This is the dredging. I just wanted to show you a snapshot. If you're in this industry, please reach out to me. I would love to hear more from you. but these are pretty large dredging requirements. They're hopper dredge in the middle of the Delaware, middle of the ocean, pumping sand or dirt and then cleaning up the beaches or whatnot. So these are very big, but I wanted to always I'd be remiss if I didn't bring them up a little bit. Environmental, we have two environmental requirements that are coming up. One, this bottom one there, FOOSRAP, is remediation of prior contaminated radiological sites from the Manhattan Project and things of that nature. We are still cleaning up a lot of sites with radiation from that project, and we have some very hot sites still here in Army Corps of Philadelphia. So that contract solicitation will be coming out in the next quarter. The multiple award environmental services contract, if you're in the environmental services and remediation area, this one might be of interest to you, but we'll need to have communication because this one may be changing. It might not be in a multiple award anymore. It might be a single award, or they might be trying to do it other ways. There was at one point these two were combined, and the FOOSRAP portion of it was almost 90% of the overall work. So when it got split up, we moved forward with the FOOSRAP, but are trying to decide the acquisition strategy for the multiple award. So there might be changes to come on that. Here's the Marine Design Center. Here's just a snapshot. There's 3 times this as well, but we do everything from like crane replacement, floating cranes, survey vessels, all again designed here at Army Corps Philadelphia Marine Design Center, and then contracted out through here. So if you're in this, or even in this environment where you help the industry, this would be one that we should have a conversation about. Here is, if you're going back to searching on sam.gov, here's the division, but those codes to the left, those are the codes you could use when you're on sam.gov in the search to specifically bring up what opportunities are being posted by Army Corps, Philadelphia, New York, on anybody in the district. So the Army Corps Philadelphia headquarters has a really good website that has some basics for doing work with the federal government, our forecast for each of the different districts. Each of the districts should have their forecast, their point of contact, and their opportunities where we're going to do networking, like our networking opportunities, where we're going to be at conferences and different things. I would recommend either grabbing this slideshow after or taking a picture of that QR code. That'll take you directly to the headquarters website.
We will share the presentation with everyone attending after.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So this is just some visual examples of some of the work that Army Corps does after different storms. The next couple are Superstorm Sandy or other beach replenishment. That beach was wiped away, as you can see, from the back bay onto the ocean side. Pretty much completely annihilated. It took several years, but we rebuilt the beach. The bridge was rebuilt, and the part of town connecting and everything was built back together over a period of time. But that's, again, one of the things that we do more on the response side than the preparation side. We like to be ahead of it. And this is one as an example of being ahead of it. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, Cape May, the ocean had come all the way up to the main ocean drive there. Those houses were right up against the rock wall, and back at that time, that was the methodology. You put up big boulders and you took the wave energy and hit it directly on a boulder, but nothing could grow, nothing could maintain itself. Over time, we've learned that a softer approach, adding sand, adding vegetation, allows that wave energy to be dispersed before it gets to the hard rocks, and then allows dunes to grow and grass to grow. And that's why in places like Outer Banks or the New Jersey coastline, you're not supposed to walk in the dunes because you're killing the vegetation and eroding the dunes by walking over top of them. Here's again another one, same New Jersey area. The water had taken all the piers, all the sand, everything, washed it all away. but over time we put it back, and the grass is growing, and there's the sand fence there, all trying to slow down the erosion and protect the communities, and again, flood risk management. Here's one of the river, or here's the Chesapeake Canal that we support. One of the bridges that go over top of it. We just resurfaced this one and one of the other ones not that long ago. So we are always reviewing, doing maintenance on those bridges that go over the Chesapeake Delaware Canal. Here's one of the dams. The Blue Marsh Dam has the basin that we keep the water level. It goes up and down depending on summer and winter level. We control. None of the dams here in Philadelphia are hydroelectric. They're all flood risk management or recreation. Flood risk management primarily, recreation added later. But we do we do releases at different times to support kayaking, whitewater rafting, downstream, different recreational sports, and we also keep the water at certain levels for boating and for beaches. So all of our some of our dams, actually not all of them, have a recreational component as well. Here's something, the same Blue Marsh. This is the lake at the winter level. They actually take trees and put them under the water. When the summer level, the water rises in the summer. These trees will all be underground come spring and summer, and then that provides habitat for fish to reproduce. So that's, again, one of the missions that I didn't even realize, but I've aligned with and I really like, is the Army Corps environmental piece, where we are really trying to be stewards of the environment and bring it back to as close to the native environment as we can and still meet our mission. Here's some tips and tricks that I've put along the way. When you send somebody your capability statement or you send somebody an email, make sure your unique ID is on your email, on your capability statement. That's the first thing I'm going to look for because that's really the way I look at sam.gov for you. And if it's not on there, then the very first email is going to be, great to see you, great to meet you. What's your UEID? When it comes to NAICS codes, I'm not going to tell you what your business is or what NAICS codes you should have or should not have. But I definitely say you want to make sure that those NAICS codes align with the business that you're doing, and that you maybe to a lesser extent don't go overboard. I've seen companies that have NAICS codes. They're in the paper industry and they have soybean farming as their NAICS code. I'm not going to say they're wrong because I asked them about it and they said, well, soybean farmers need to print and need paper too. So I'm not going to say they're wrong because that's definitely not my place. It's your business. But just, you might be cognizant. If you are a supplier of a certain type of product, you want to make sure you have everything that product makes sense. But if you go too far and have too many, then some people might be like, well, is this company specialized as we need them to be? Be prepared for your introductory meeting or capability briefings. Make sure you have a PowerPoint presentation prepared. Make sure you are covering your NAICS codes, your area of operation, your any business you've done with that, either the Army Corps of Engineers or any other DoD entity you've done business with. You want to make sure you're highlighting that and how it's wrapped up. If you've done anything, if you finished it early, you finished on budget, any of those kind of things. When you're building that book or when you're talking about those capability statements, you want to make sure you try to build relationships with as many small business or districts as makes sense, or centers as makes sense. Again, if you're not out in the West Coast, don't worry about those. Of course, not yet. But if you're all up and down the East Coast, you definitely want to be talking to the North Atlantic Division, the South Atlantic Division, because they all have different missions. And again, one might be building up while somebody else is like, oh, well, this piece of our mission is going down. And once you have that, start building that relationship, start doing the work successfully, name recognition will start to kick in. A part of name recognition is, though, responding to sources sought whenever you can. So that is the primary driver when we decide if it's going to go small business set aside or what small business socioeconomic category it's going to go into. Here in Philadelphia and generally across the Army Corps, it's not a. I don't have a fight with. Oh, we have 5 small businesses that can do the work. You've determined them all capable, and I don't have the program coming back and say, well, I don't want to go small business because I don't trust small business or I don't think they can do the work. Um, I don't have that fight. If we have the market research, if we have the 5 small businesses that are capable, then it's yep. Let's go small business and let's move and deal with other issues or other problems. The problem when it comes to market research is not getting those responses. If I don't, I might know you're out there. I might know you're perfectly capable, and I might even send you the sources sought and say, "Hey, this might be something. This is something you should be interested in, or might be interested in." Um, but if you don't respond to that sources sought, uh, I don't say it's not. It's like you don't exist. But for the program, for that consideration, it's almost like you don't exist because they're like, okay, well, only this one company responded, or only these 2 companies responded, and one of them we determined not to be capable. We don't have enough interest from small business to put this aside. We're going to move forward full and open. And I could say, oh no, I know this company's out there that can do it, and it's like, well, why didn't they respond? And we could do an RFI, request for information. There's other ways to go about it, but it's not as strong of a case unless I have that sources sought response. That's why um, uh, uh, small business professionals are always hyping on the sources sought response because that's really the driver of telling us where we're going to go. I can't. I would be remiss if I didn't put a plug in for the Apex accelerators. You definitely utilize your Apex accelerators. Um, or SBA Score. They have great resources. They're always free, and they can answer your questions. If they can't answer your question, or if you want to come to me, you are the advocate for your small business. You definitely want to be asking the questions, sending me the email, sending and asking whatever question. And if I can't answer it, or if I don't know the answer, I will try to run it to ground for you and try to get the answer for you because I want you to have the information you need to feel comfortable, either on a specific solicitation or as a general. What does this acronym mean? What does ERDIC mean? Which I'm about to explain ERDIC in a second. What does that mean? Because you know what, I understand. We use a lot of acronyms and they're not intuitive. And you go and do a Google search, and you'll still get different answers. And like, oh, that doesn't make any sense for what they're saying. So I can be that middle ground. I can be that person, especially for the Army Corps of Engineers, Philadelphia, and Army Corps. Of like, okay, this is what that means, or help you run the ground. And ERDIC, um, for companies that have a new product, have a new way of doing something, have a new type of concrete or new way of building something. ERDIC is the engineering and research development arm of the Army Corps of Engineers, and they have what's called white papers. That basically is a paper you submit to the Army Corps engineers through ERDIC and say, hey, you have problem X, Y, I have solution X, Y, Z. Uh, Ours is economical, it's environmentally friendly. There's different areas, and then ERDIC will evaluate um, that solution. I'm not exactly sure how long that whole process takes. I haven't seen anybody go through it yet, but that is the way that Army Corps officially evaluates new options and new ways of doing business. Here's my contact. John Stefano is the head of contracting here. That's his email as well. We recently had a change of command, Lieutenant Colonel Beeman, this summer. So that's our picture of our new commander giving a speech. Great guy. I've had a chance last week and a half to spend some time with him. The mission runs very deep within the Army Corps. Mission runs very deep. It's a family tradition. So he aspired to get the commander position, and he has achieved that and doing great things with it. Again, there's my small business website you can go to for the Army Corps of Philadelphia specifically. My forecast is posted there. I also have a database or a link to a database, headquarters database for contractors that are looking to be subcontractors. It's a good resource to put your name on. It's just to get your name recognition. And if a large contractor is looking for subs, they can go on there to look for the subcontractors. That would be the end of my slide. And I think I just stopped presenting.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I still see that last slide, but that's okay. James.
Stop.
Yeah. That's okay. Thank you very much. I think this was great. So I definitely want to open it up for questions. Feel free to raise your hand. Let's see, we have one raised hand. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Hi, James. Question. Do you sponsor research and development activities specifically about PFAS remediation?
So, as I'm sure you're aware, PFAS and PFAS is definitely a growing area of concern that the Army Corps of Engineers and DoD has not um, settled on. My understanding, I'm not an expert in this area, has not settled on a standard of what level of remediation is acceptable. And that's coming in. And that's one of the. So besides this is one of the area I've learned the most in. As like I didn't know anything about this area before I came in as a civilian. Now I actually feel like I was like, oh, this is interesting and not good at all. Um, but to answer your specific question, the research and sponsorship. I don't know. I wouldn't say sponsorship per se, but the research would be evaluated and determined which direction the Army Corps of Engineers would want to go through that ERDIC white paper process. I know right now there are PFAS and PFAS sites that are we know of in the Army Corps of Philadelphia, but we have not. We've done initial studies. We know they will eventually be cleaned up, but since the Army Corps and DoD has not settled on a standard, nobody wants to be the first one to start stepping out and taking care of the problem until they know how far we have to go. So it's until the EPA or until some agency, I think, sort of puts a stake in the ground and says this is where you got to get to. I think sadly the Army Corps is going to be on a pause, not really making much progress on that. I hope that answered your question. Probably not exactly what you wanted to hear, but
I wanted to hear that, yes, and here's the website. But no, I got it. Thank you so much.
yeah, and I mean, if you can reach out to me and I'll help you, I can get you. Well, the link to the ERDIC website. Actually, I don't think I had the link, but if you just Google ERDIC Army Corps of Engineers, that'll bring you to the white paper process, and I can give you a document on the white paper process on how to submit.
Got it. Thank you.
If you can share that copy with me, James, as well, so I can share it with our counselors, that would be wonderful.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah, and if I'm keeping track of raised hands in a proper order, I see Igor Mesano. I believe you're next, or Igor. I'm not sure how you're pronouncing your name, so thank you. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. It's Igor. So James, thank you so much for the presentation. I have a question regarding navigating a little bit of the contracts and subcontracts. So we do a lot of contract manufacturing in the metal space, right? So whether that is, laser cutting, welding, bending, things like that, and that can fall within, so many different codes in terms of the need. So if, for example, we can support a construction, we can support shipbuilding and things like that.
Right.
So how do we navigate something so broad that we do that doesn't necessarily line up to the codes that perfectly? And as a second question, or maybe related, is does that mean that maybe we should be looking more towards subcontracting, where people are aware of our capabilities and they can kind of have those bigger contracts or the broader contracts, and then we can support them on the metal side of things?
Yeah, and that's a common refrain or common thing to that I see a lot, because a lot of contractors, they're flooring, they're metal, they're a piece of the construction process, but very seldom does the Army Corps contract out for that individual piece of the process. And I would agree with that as well, probably for metal. I mean, there could be instances where I could see us getting metal to certain sizes for a project that we're going to do ourselves. But generally it's going to be as a subcontract. And for the initial question, for your first question, I would make sure that you have the NAICS codes that your product could be used in. So whether or not it's construction, shipbuilding, look at the end unit, look at the end requirement and what Army Corps or the different DoD components are going to be using your product for, and put those NAICS codes. And then also, when you're searching SAM, or when you're when you're searching SAM for sheet metal or whatever keywords you're looking for, if you see a NAICS code that like, oh, I wouldn't have thought to put that, you can always add it to your SAM.gov profile, because it might be an area that you just not, you generally don't think of. I mean, HVAC, or I don't know exactly where, boilers probably not its own NAICS code, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So you probably are going to be have a decent amount of NAICS codes that don't directly align, because they don't go that, they go weirdly specific sometimes, but they also sometimes don't go specific in the direction you want them to. Sorry. And then yes, probably for your work up front, and so you're going to be looking at subcontract opportunities for the Army Corps of Engineers. You sort of Philadelphia, you mentioned one, shipbuilding. We have again a lot of small shipyards that do a lot of steel, aluminum hulls, repair. You can go on and you start just seeing what contractors are doing that work and reaching out to them directly. When it comes to other subcontracting opportunities with large businesses, all the large businesses have to have a subcontracting plan. And on that subcontracting plan is a point of contact for their small business advocate for that company. So you can go on SAM, find release contracts, find the subcontracting plans, and figure out who their point of contact is, and reach directly out to them and say, hey, I know you have this steel building you're building over here. You were given a contract a month ago. We want to introduce ourselves as somebody that can do the steel bending or steel work that needs to be done, or whatever metal work that needs to be done for that building, and try to build that relationship from there.
Got it. We did see, for example, we did see some projects. Actually, it was from the Army Corps, as far as I think there were some like guardrails for 40-foot long guardrails for rivers. And in those cases, some of them were posted in NAICS codes that were related to like more metal manufacturing.
Yep.
But it doesn't seem to be a consistent thing, right? Like sometimes that same project would be, posted somewhere that's more related to like a construction. So that's what we were trying to understand. I'm not sure if that's usual, where it's kind of depending on the person where they categorize the project.
It very much so depends on the contracting officer and specialist, how they categorize the project. The NAICS codes are a standard, and it's trying to put a standard to, how much of it is steel, how much of it is construction. Is there other pieces to it that make it more of a construction, or are we just looking for the guardrail, the pure metal, and we're going to put it up ourselves? So yeah, it's not clean cut, and it's even a project like that. Most of the time, I'd imagine is going to go under probably construction versus the steel itself, because again, coming from the mindset of the contracting person or the specialist, I'm not buying the steel. I'm buying the guardrail and the finished product. And to me, that's a contractor or construction project that needs to go up, not sheets of steel or sheets of metal as like a supply buy. So I'd imagine a lot of times those are going to come out more in the construction realm. Now, there's a lot of ways you could go about this. One way is you could, if you see something like that, maybe bring the opportunity to a contracting company, a construction company. Say, hey, we saw this opportunity. We can make all the product. But we don't have the labor to install it, or we don't have the skills that do this area. And then work with them directly as either they're your sub or you become a sub under them, depending on the dynamics of the situation. But that's another way you can sort of lean forward and say, hey, this project is great or this requirement is great for what we do, but we don't have this piece. Maybe find a company that does that piece for you.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Yep. Thank you very much. believe Lucy is the next.
Okay. Well, hi there, James. It's nice to meet you, and I hope you're enjoying this time in Philadelphia. Um, get some niceties out of the way. First, I want you to say hi to John Stefano for me. I'm a retired contracting officer for the federal government, and I did my internship with NAVC, and John was my first branch manager. So tell John, your new chief, I said hello. So I see you and I have some similar career paths when I looked at your LinkedIn. So I had some questions, and that they're going to support Igor, who is my client with Apex Accelerators. Now that I'm retired, I'm an Apex Accelerator counselor. It's a fantastic opportunity. And that NAICS code question, Igor, when you get to the point where you're ready for a bid match subscription, because we offer free bid match subscriptions to our clients, you're going to want to search not on NAICS codes, but on keywords, which is what James was alluding to. And then secondly, this question is for you, James. On your website, it's incredible. I love it. It's U.S. Army Corps of Engineers doing business with us / small business / Philadelphia. You have these excellent steps. You have lists of your how to do business. You have a contact information to where to email capability statements. These were all questions I had for you, and almost every single one is answered on this site. The one observation I have is you have a list of current IDIQ contract holders, and that would be an opportunity for how people will find out who has the work with you right now if they want to be a sub, but it's not an updated list. So it's a request. I know it's hard to get an updated anything on a government website, but that, and I know there's some updating going on because your schedule did show right up to November where the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer, what you're participating in. So one is, can that be updated? These are companies for the rest of you that already have like a parent IDIQ contract with Army Corps of Engineers. So they're already probably doing work for you if they have an order. And that would be a way to find out how to reach out to them and say, I'm a sub, this is what I do. I mean, this is what I do. Do you have some opportunities for me? The second one is, you mentioned when clients consent, vendors can send their capability statement, but I don't think you said where they can send it to. There's a CENAP-SB@usace.army.mil. Is that still current email address that they could be sending it to, or should they be sending it to individuals like yourself?
So that is still a good one, but sending it directly to me would be the best way and most direct way. So my email address, I also check the other one once a week, but that's my general small business email address. But anybody on here that we've already started this conversation can send me an email directly at james.r.wood@usace.army.mil, and it'll be on that last slide of my PowerPoint as well.
Well, if nobody has their hand right, go ahead. Go ahead and repeat that.
Okay, I'll repeat it. james.r.wood@usace.army.mil, and it looks like Beth just dropped it in the chat as well.
Okay, great.
Thank you,
and
Beth.
so to
I was
answer
doing
your
the same.
to comment on your the IDIQ updating, yes, that it's still a good list because a lot of times contractors who do work with the Army Corps of Engineers or have IDIQs in the past will compete again in the future and have a high likelihood of winning again for other requirements. But yes, the current IDIQ list is not been updated since I joined, and I actually just yesterday reached out to my legal department to find out what I'm able to post. Because the reason I haven't really touched it is, one, I've been doing a lot of other things, and two, I really wasn't sure what I was legally able to post out there. Since that IDIQ list was already out there, I felt safe on leaving it. But pulling new information or vendor name or point of contacts, I was not as of yet not comfortable about updating that list. But I reached out just yesterday to legal to see what exactly, because what I am able to post. And I mean, it's all as I mentioned, all the subcontracting plans are public information.
Yes.
So it's all out there on SAM.gov. It would be a matter of me compiling it. So I can't imagine that I'm not able to do that. But until I want to get the all clear before I start putting out points of contacts for contractors that we have.
That would be awesome, because that would be a tremendous resource for small businesses. Not every federal agency is willing to do that. And if you are, we really appreciate that. And thank you very much for trying. I don't see any hands raised, so I'm going to ask you a couple questions I think people probably have, but don't know that they have them yet. Our clients talk a lot about how they can get business for a company that they're either doing a joint venture with or as a sub. And you briefly mentioned that you're now giving credit for joint experiences. And I was wondering, how would people know that, how that worked? Would that be in the solicitation? It would describe in the solicitation how they would get credit? Or is there some other plan that you're referring to?
So, well, I think there's two different ways. So in a solicitation, it'll be listed what past performance is acceptable, or what is being considered for past performance, what level tier, within how many with how many years, what is recent, what is relevant. So you'll need to you would have to dive into each solicitation and see what exactly it's saying for, okay, this is what past performance we're considering. Now, if it doesn't include the language like I just talked about, where joint ventures or subcontract past performance can be considered, you can always send a question in to the program, to the contract, and say, hey, per the FAR, be as specific as you can be, and I can help you with getting that reference as well. We should be able to consider past performance from a joint venture, but your language does not explicitly say that or excludes that. Is the government willing to consider changing their requirement? And if you support it with the FAR and whatnot, then I think it'd be pretty hard for them to say no. We're not gonna consider that.
Well, that's fantastic. We appreciate being innovative and you're thinking like that instead of using strict language from the past that just cuts out most opportunities for small businesses. And one last,
we also have some,
Yeah.
I see that people have been putting some questions in the chat. I just
that aren't,
noticed. So
okay, go ahead.
yeah.
That last question I have is, do you do a lot of micro purchases? Is there a way that business could reach out for micro purchases that aren't posted elsewhere?
I actually do not know, nor do I track the micro purchases that are done at the Army Corps. I know we have impact cards. I know we have people that do those, but those requirements do not go through me as a small business deputy. They should be automatically set aside for small business based on their dollar threshold. But if somebody's looking specifically for micro purchase threshold, I'd say have them reach out to me, and I can try to figure out who would be the purchase card holder that would be dealing with that work.
Okay, thanks, Natasha. I'm done.
Yes, so I see that we have a question from Margaret. She posted it some time ago. If the agency does not submit a sources sought rather than an RFQ, does that mean the requirements are determined? I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. Margaret, maybe you want to unmute yourself, or James, you may want to take a best guess of what.
So if they
Hi, sorry. My name is Margaret. Yeah, so we rarely receive sources sought. When we do, we certainly respond to them. What we normally receive are RFQs, and normally these RFQs, the requirements are maybe geared to already some product that's already determined. So it's a bit confusing. If the agency is looking for a product that does not meet the requirements in that RFQ.
So, request for quote (RFQ) is one of the other alternate methodologies for soliciting work. In the fact that it's done under the simplified acquisition threshold. It should be set aside for small business, and unless they've gone through the process of not setting it aside. The only way not the only way, but the primary way they would go about not getting it set aside is doing a source of sought and market research to show there's not small businesses out there. But under the simplified acquisition threshold, it all should be, or it's automatically set aside for small business. But it sounds like your question is more about they're being very specific in their RFQ to the point where it's almost set aside for a certain company. And an example, I think I understand what you're saying is we did an RFQ for Yamaha engines or something of that nature, and that was a brand name. We needed those type of engines. Is that sort of what you're talking about?
Yes, when we respond to an RFQ, it takes a lot of time, and we are hoping that even though we don't meet all of the requirements in that solicitation, that the agency would be open to different requirements. It's confusing to me. What exactly the RFQ is whether it's already predetermined requirements, and if you don't meet them, you might as well not respond.
I think that really depends on how the RFQ is worded. Most of the time, they do solicitations or RFQs do put a or equal. So if we're asking for they're very specific, but if let's say they're asking for 10 years of experience in a certain area or a certain certification needs to be shown in your work. If your company doesn't have that at this point, or doesn't have 10 years of experience, or the individual that meets the certification level, I would definitely say that you want to show how you're going to mitigate for that. It may end up being a no kind of thing, and I mean I don't want to put too much of a damper on it. But if they're looking for an engineer that has 15 years of experience and an XY certification, and you submit one that doesn't have that, they have 7 or 8 years and does not have that certification, it very well could be, well, they're not determined capable because they have not met the requirement that we're asking for. But if you, it's very requirement specific. But if you put, oh, our person has 12 years and is actively working on the XY certificate or certification, then that would be almost a contracting call to decide, okay, yep, they've shown how they're planning on mitigating that, or we have somebody in house that has 12 years, but we're hiring a consultant that has 25 years that'll supervise or review the person who's doing the work. It's very specific to the requirement. I'm sorry, that's probably not exactly what you want to hear, but it could be, depending on how it's worded, it could be something that's a hard requirement, or even if it is a hard requirement, showing how you're trying to meet the intent or doing it should go a long way.
Yeah, thank you for that. I guess that leaves me with it for us. Waiting for the RFQ is usually too much time and too iffy as far as winning this bid. But trying to find the government needs before the solicitation, and it would be great if we received more sources sought that way. But I think we're trying to find ways to determine what the needs are before the solicitation. So we can see if the government actually can use our product.
So maybe I can, just piggyback. Margaret said that you're receiving either sources sought on RFPs. You can also search for them on sam.gov. We can assist you with that. And as Lucy mentioned previously, we get, if you're currently not signed up for bid match and you are procurement ready, we can sign you up for bid match. And whenever those sources sought
Yeah, thank
issues,
you. We
they
do
would,
have
yeah.
we do have bid match, and that we do, but again, it's a little too late. It does appear that the requirements are predetermined, and it would be good to get, you know, contacts, networking before that RFQ.
Sure. Well,
So
speaking with your counselor, we can target agencies that are, most likely to purchase your product or service, and we can certainly help you establish, government marketing path to networking. So,
thank you.
you're welcome. We have another question. Does the small business responding sources sought get a return call or get any consideration if it becomes a solicitation? And just wanted to kind of keep in mind that we have about 10 minutes left.
Okay. I would like to say yes, but so that really depends on the specialist and the contracting officer. So if you submit a source of sought response, you are now showing that you are essentially you're an interested party. You're saying, here, I'm out here, I'm available, and I want to do the work. Now, there's no requirement by the FAR to, other than you should receive a received or acknowledged something letting you know that we've received it. But there's no requirement by the FAR to notify the sources sought respondents that the solicitation has come out. A lot of good contracting officers, good contracting specialists, they will utilize that list of sources sought responses and send out the notification once the solicitation is posted, as a courtesy, as a doing good business with the industry. But there's no requirement by the FAR to do it, so it's not going to be consistent. One thing I'll say is, so whenever after you've met me and you can get on my Excel, I will send you a courtesy copy once the solicitation or the source sought is posted. And then again, when the solicitation comes out, I will send, based on your NAICS code, I'll send it to you as well. So that'd be one way that I push information out and sort of help bridge that gap.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to piggyback on something you mentioned earlier relative being on a disaster response list. If your SAM registration currently doesn't have that, we were happy to revisit your SAM registration and see if you're registered as a part of disaster response business ready. And also, I know we have some transportation industry businesses here, just when it comes to FEMA. They do have a special vetting process that begins now in December and January to be on their response registry. So if you need assistance with that, please reach out to your counselors. We are happy to guide you through that. Just because it's a deadline sensitive, it happens once a year. So, and let's see, we have another question from Amanda. Does USCE ever source for in-person events, food purveyors as subcontracts with an existing contract with a hospitality service provider?
So I understand that question. Do we ever subcontract out or contract out for conferences and other in-person events?
For food purveyors, yeah.
So us, the Army Corps of Engineers, I would say no. I'm not saying it never happens, but we don't generally host or have events where we're the ones providing food. Even like that awards ceremony or a change of command ceremony, a lot of times those are all, if there is any food, that's provided by the commander on his own expense. If we're going to do a industry day or something with contracting, we utilize government facilities or locations that we don't generally pay um, to host the industry day or conference. We do work with other agency or other organizations, SIME, um, Apex, to go to their conferences, and they a lot of times, as a part of the conference or organization, they contract out for food and all the logistical pieces. Um, but Army Corps Engineers, specifically Army Corps of Engineers Philadelphia, doesn't really hold our own event. We tag along and we work with other organizations that do events.
Okay. We also had a question, about a difference between UEI and a cage code. James, do you want to answer that? You have to answer that.
I mean, I know they are different. I'm actually not sure what I know. You could have you need to have a UEI and a cage code in order to be contract ready.
Correct.
Going through SAM is the way you go get both of those. The actual difference, I'm not actually sure. Maybe I can learn something here.
That's okay. So the way I understand it is that UEI is a unique entity identifier, and it validates your business as existing, right? So it's kind of a first step in registering in SAM, right? So once your business is validated and identified, you are assigned a UEI number. Now, CAGE code stands for Commercial and Government Entity Code. And if you want to, receive funds or bid on opportunities as a prime, you need that CAGE code. So this is kind of third and final step in registering in SAM for business opportunities.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, because I did not know that. I actually, I mean, I look for both. And I was like, if they don't have both, then they're not. I can help, but they're not contract ready for Army Corps of Engineers. So I didn't know the UEI came before the cage code. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Okay, well, we are close to end time. If there are no more questions, I'm looking for raised hands. I don't see any. I really want to thank you, James, for your contribution today during this webinar. And I know that we are communicating with you a lot. So thank you for supporting our businesses and clients in in determining their path to government contracting. So as you will all be receiving a copy of this presentation as well as a link to to this webinar, so you can revisit all of the information that we discussed today. And once again, thank you very much and have a great day, everybody.